barefaced Bieber is back.
This is the story of what pushed Justin Bieber into a near-total social media silence in 2025, and why he stepped back at the exact moment most people expected him to be everywhere. These moments did not happen randomly. They unfolded one after another through posts that sounded drained, public pressure he did not want, and a pattern that suggested he needed distance from everything attached to fame. The timeline begins in March of that year, when Justin shared a message saying he felt like he was drowning. The post was short and disappeared quickly, but the wording was impossible to ignore. Fans who had followed him for years recognized how unusual it was. Many remembered previous stretches where he admitted to burnout, anxiety, or feeling overwhelmed. So seeing him use a word that strong raised alarms instantly. His activity had already slowed before that moment. People noticed the lack of live streams, fewer updates, and shorter captions. None of those changes seemed dramatic until the drowning message connected them together. Once it did, the quiet stretches around him felt different, like they were part of something larger he had not explained yet. Those concerns grew through the spring because Justin's presence online had always been a reliable way to see how he was doing. When he stopped sharing as much, the silence gave every new detail extra weight. Fans were not just watching gaps between posts. They were watching a shift in tone that started long before the blackout became obvious. This first sign, combined with the stress he hinted at in the months that followed, set everything else in motion. It marked the beginning of a year when he backed away from the spotlight while the world tried to understand what he was facing. And once people saw how quickly things escalated after March, the story of his 2025 silence became harder to ignore.
Justin Bieber debuting this fresh look at a Dijon concert over the weekend, vibing alongside wife Hailey and pal Kendall Jenner.
The shift became clearer in early April when Justin traveled to Palm Springs during Coachella. What should have been a simple coffee stop turned into one of the most talked about moments of his year. As he walked outside, paparazzi moved in quickly, and the tension that followed was captured on video and spread across social media within minutes. Justin confronted the photographers and accused them of only showing up when there was money to be made. His tone sounded fed up, and the clip spread fast enough that it became impossible for him to ignore the reaction. People online immediately split into two groups. Supporters said he had every reason to react the way he did, pointing to years of pressure from cameras following him everywhere. Others claimed he was being too sharp, insisting that he should have expected paparazzi at an event as big as Coachella. Both sides flooded comment sections, and the noise around the moment grew louder than the incident itself. What mattered most was how the situation affected Justin. The video made it clear he was not in a place where he wanted any extra attention. Even a small interaction turned into a headline, and that added more weight to the frustration he had expressed just a few weeks earlier. The stress that came with those viral clips wasn't new for him, but the way he reacted suggested he was reaching a limit.
Now, it's not a total shock the 31-year-old ditched his grisly growth. He teased as much just weeks ago, tweeting, "Thinking about shaving my beard."
Once the video spread, people started paying closer attention to every sign of stress, and that caused even ordinary behavior to get magnified. Moments that would have gone unnoticed in previous years were now part of a larger conversation about his well-being. That shift created a pattern he couldn't escape. As soon as the clip circulated, it became obvious that any public moment involving him could turn into another story he didn't want to be part of. This turning point added pressure at the exact moment he was trying to keep things quiet. The argument about the video didn't fade quickly either, which meant he was forced back into the spotlight he was already trying to avoid. The result was a growing sense that staying online would only bring more unwanted attention, and that mindset followed him into the next months of the year. The turning point that followed came in early June, when Justin shared a series of messages that made it clear he felt drained far beyond anything he had shown the public in a long time. These posts weren't polished announcements or promotional lines. They sounded personal, almost like thoughts he typed out in the moment. One message said, "If I have to do something to be loved, that's not love." And the tone of that line carried a level of frustration that caught people off guard. A second message pointed back to people he felt had pushed him too hard, saying, "I listened to those fools who told me to work harder." Those lines hit differently because they did not feel like part of a larger campaign. They felt like someone letting pressure slip through the cracks. Fans who had followed him for years recognized the difference right away. The comments filled with people saying he looked overwhelmed, that he needed time away, or that he was hinting at pressure behind the scenes. Others pointed out that the timing was strange because he had been quiet for months and then suddenly dropped these heavy messages without any explanation. The posts didn't fit into a pattern of promotion or build-up for new music, and that added to the confusion about what he was working through. What made these messages stand out even more was how quickly they disappeared. Screenshots stayed online, but the original posts didn't last long. That created a sense that he had shared something he didn't want sitting out in public for too long. The comments that followed weren't just about concern. Many people wondered if he was signaling that he wanted out of the spotlight entirely, especially since the posts matched the tone of the drowning message from March. After those updates, the silence that followed felt heavier than before. Days turned into weeks without any new posts, and the rare moments he did show up online were short or disconnected. The lack of clarity made every detail more dramatic. Even when nothing was happening at all, fans read into the gaps, and the gaps were longer than anything people were used to. That shift made it clear the posts were not random thoughts. They were part of a larger moment where he seemed to be stepping back and letting the world keep talking while he stayed quiet.
Seems he's happy with the choice too, raving about how he can feel the air now on his Twitch stream.
How's it feel to have a fresh face?
It's nice. It feels like I can feel the air.
When July arrived, the silence took on a new meaning, because Justin released a full studio album without doing the usual online build-up that normally surrounds a project of that size. On July 11th, the album titled Swag appeared with almost no advance notice, and the lack of promotion was unusual enough that it became part of the story. Fans expected interviews, teasers, or at least a few posts leading up to the drop, but none of that happened. He let the music arrive on its own, and the decision added another layer to the growing pattern of distance. Releasing a project this way created questions he never addressed. People wondered whether the album was meant to speak for him since he wasn't speaking for himself. Others said the silence around it didn't feel strategic at all, that it sounded more like someone who didn't want to go through the pressure of interviews, public appearances, or the non-stop feedback loop that comes with promoting a major release. The rollout felt stripped down, almost like he wanted the album out in the world, but wasn't willing to step back into the spotlight to support it. The timing also sharpened the focus on everything he had shared earlier in the year. Those messages about feeling overwhelmed and used made the quiet release feel connected to something deeper. Instead of leading into a new era with big announcements and excitement, he stayed almost completely detached. His accounts remained still, and that silence made the album feel like a personal project, rather than a traditional return to music. Even longtime fans didn't know how to respond because the excitement of new music came with concern about how he was actually doing. Normally, releasing an album is a moment where an artist is front and center, but here it felt like Justin was stepping to the side and letting the music move without him. Every day that passed without a new post added to the feeling that he wasn't ready to face the public reaction, good or bad. This release marked a clear separation between his creative work and his presence online. The music was there, but he stayed quiet. And that choice set up what happened a few months later when another surprise project appeared, continuing the same pattern of distance and unpredictability.
Bieber was there to cheer on his hometown team, the Toronto Blue Jays, but the beardless look wasn't a good enough good luck charm, because they lost to the Dodgers 6-5 in a marathon game.
2 months after releasing Swag, Justin delivered another surprise project titled Swag 2, and the timing of that second album raised even more questions. Dropping 2 studio albums so close together is rare for any major artist, and doing it without long announcements, interviews, or steady posts made the moment feel even more unusual. Fans expected him to at least acknowledge the release online, but he stayed quiet and let the music appear with almost no explanation. The quick turnaround created a sense that he was pouring himself into the studio while pulling himself out of everything else. People who followed him closely noticed the contrast immediately. He was active enough to create and finish 2 full projects, yet he didn't show up publicly to talk about them. That gap between his creative output and his silence online became one of the defining details of his year, and it pushed the idea that something behind the scenes had affected how he wanted to interact with the world. Even the reaction from fans showed how different this era felt. When Swag 2 came out, the excitement about new music was mixed with confusion about his absence. Threads, comments, and fan accounts were filled with people trying to understand why he would release 2 albums while avoiding the attention that usually comes with them. Instead of promoting a new era, he seemed to be keeping a steady distance from every spotlight aimed his way. Observers pointed out that this pattern didn't match typical industry strategy. Artists usually build momentum between releases, but Justin's approach in 2025 moved in the opposite direction. He gave fans more music than expected while giving fewer pieces of himself, and that balance created more speculation about what he was dealing with privately. Each time he released something new, the silence around it made people look closer at what he wasn't saying. This second release confirmed that the Blackout wasn't a brief pause or a temporary stretch of quiet. It had become a consistent choice that shaped every part of his year. The music kept coming, but his voice stayed off social media, and that combination set the stage for how people described the rest of his behavior throughout 2025.
Bieber's jawline also getting some time to shine at Game 3 of the World Series at LA's Dodger Stadium on Tuesday, another date night with Haley.
By the time fall arrived, Justin's absence had become impossible to miss. His accounts stayed quiet for long stretches, and the few times he posted earlier in the year didn't lead to any follow-up. Fans who once saw steady updates were now watching weeks go by without a single message, and that shift made every moment of silence feel heavier. The lack of explanation only made it more noticeable, especially when people compared it to the emotional posts he had shared in the spring. What stood out most was how complete the silence became. There were no long captions, no previews of upcoming projects, no statements about stepping away, and no sign that he planned to return to a regular posting schedule. Even paparazzi sightings dropped during this time, and that added to the sense that he was pulling himself out of the public eye as much as possible. The world was talking, but he wasn't responding. Fans tried to piece together what the absence meant, and the theories started stacking up. Some pointed to the messages about feeling overwhelmed, while others focused on the back-to-back albums as a sign he wanted to express himself without being dragged back into the pressure that came with fame. The quiet around him created a picture of someone who wanted distance more than anything else. And each new day without a post made that picture clearer. This long stretch of silence is the reason people began calling it a blackout. It wasn't just a break from posting. It was a sudden drop in visibility across every part of his public life. And the timing matched a period filled with emotional weight, unwanted attention, and major career moves he chose not to promote. Everything pointed to a year where he wanted space, and the blackout became the clearest sign of that choice. The final picture of Justin's 2025 blackout is shaped by the moments he shared and the long stretches where he said nothing at all. There was never an official statement explaining why he stepped back, but the events of the year pointed towards someone who needed distance from the pressure he had carried for so long. The posts about feeling used, the sudden emotional messages, and the quiet album releases all fit together in a way that showed how much weight he was trying to manage behind the scenes. Supporters who followed every update could see the pattern forming. He released music without the usual excitement, avoided public attention even when major projects dropped, and kept himself out of the conversations happening around him. Each choice added to the sense that he was protecting whatever peace he could find. The blackout wasn't a dramatic announcement or a declared break. It was simply the way he moved through the year as everything around him kept swirling. The silence left unanswered questions, but it also made one thing clear. Justin's relationship with fame has never been simple, and 2025 showed how quickly it could become overwhelming again. By limiting how much of himself he shared, he created space to navigate stress on his own terms. It wasn't a strategy or a marketing move. It was a response to a year that brought pressure, scrutiny, and constant attention he no longer wanted. This is the story of Justin Bieber's quietest year, The posts, the pauses, the unexpected albums, and the long stretches of silence made 2025 unlike anything he had done before. If you want more breakdowns of the stories shaping the biggest names of the year, make sure you subscribe so you don't miss what comes next.